You're watching Fox 8 Overtime, brought to you by your Southern Quality Ford dealers. Built Ford tough.
From the Fox 8 studios in New Orleans, this is the Fox 8 Overtime Podcast. I am your host, Sean Fazende, and riding next to me, riding shotgun, co-pilot Andre Johnson Jr. It is Friday. It is a huge weekend ahead in the city of New Orleans. There's a lot of stuff to talk about, but first and foremost, this is always one of the most fun weekends you're going to have. If you're in the city of New Orleans, if you like the parade season, it steps it up a notch, and it gets real this weekend. Although, I don't know about you, Andre, I've always kind of felt like that Thursday night, the Crew of Muses night, is always the unofficial start to the big weekend of Mardi Gras. So if you were out there for the Crew of Muses or wherever you go to watch your parades, I hope you all had a good time. So here we are, Andre. It is Friday. Do you have big plans this weekend?
Oh, you already know. We got some party plans. We got some parade plans. I got a big weekend planned. Get some good food, which is really, the most important part of this season is to get some good food. Y'all probably notice I talk about food a lot.
I think you open every show with a food discussion.
I be hungry, Sean.
Yes, I get it.
Feel free to send y'all food recommendations. I like new restaurants.
All right. Well, before we get into the party weekend, which I'll have an announcement about that from my own involvement coming Saturday. So be sure to tune into that stay tuned for that a little bit later in the show. We do have a few items to get to before we get into the party weekend. Biggest being, look, we got to talk Saints. A lot of stuff has been happening, but we picked a big picture topic today that I don't know if it's going to generate a lot of buzz right now, but as we get closer and closer to training camp and into training camp, it could become a significant storyline, and it could become a significant storyline depending on what happens with other players at this position. So, Andre, why don't you give the audience the big picture item today?
Absolutely. Earlier in the week, we talked about QB1 and Derek Carr. We talked about who was QB2 last year and Jameis Winston. But today, we're staying on the quarterback train, but we're talking about a different guy. Quarterback Jake Haener, drafted as a rookie last season. And if Jameis leaves New Orleans, as he is expected to, it would be Jake Haener, as of right now, who would step into that QB2 role. So, Sean, we saw a little bit of Jake Haener during training camp. He was kind of the training camp MVP. He actually looked like a rookie during the preseason, probably didn't do a lot to impress the fans that didn't get a chance to see him in training camp. But you saw both. How would you feel going into the season with Jake Haener as quarterback number 2 behind Derek Carr?
Yeah, I wanted to refresh. I do this from time to time, not just with Jake Haener. I'll go back and read my old stuff just to kind of refresh the narrative, refresh the talking points that we were talking about. He popped really early in training camp, practice number 4, practice number 5. It was like, whoa, who is this guy? And I mean, everybody took notice. He was making plays. He was decisive. He was accurate, confident. And, it goes hand in hand. When you know what you're doing, you're confident. When you're confident, you make stronger decisions. And when you're decisive, usually that makes big plays. And it wasn't just his playmaking ability or his ability to execute the offense, but because he was so proficient, all of a sudden the third team reps at offensive line got more important. The third team reps at wide receiver got more important. At running back got more important. But I wanted to go back and just refresh it. I printed out an old blog that I wrote after this is practice 9, so he was still kind of on this trajectory. And I just wrote, the topic is Haener excels in red zone. I said, another day, another impressive performance from rookie quarterback Jake Haener. This time he looked like a seasoned veteran in the red zone. He opened with a dart to Lucas Krull on a back shoulder throw for a touchdown. Krull was held and could only get one hand on the ball to make the catch. On the next play, the pair connected on a score on a bootleg. Haener's next pass got away from him, and he was picked off by Ugo Amade. It was his first interception of camp. He didn't stay down for long, though. When his reps came around again, he found Lynn Bowden in the end zone for another score. Just to get you guys an idea of what we were talking about with Jake Haener, this is back in the first or second week of August. It was that good. I mean, It was that good. And when he got to a preseason game, he had his moments where he looked like a rookie. He had some moments where he looked like he bounced back. But by the end of the preseason, you could tell right now you're good as the number 3. But can he go into the season comfortably as the number 2? I believe he can develop into a confident number 2, and we'll see what happens beyond that. When you're saying that is, Are you confident in saying Jake Haener is going to start for you? He's one play away from starting for you at any point in a regular season game. Based off what I saw last year, he would not have been ready.
Right.
But hopefully he took the last year knowledge, can grow on that this year, and hopefully become strong enough to be, or at least in the mix for the number 2 quarterback. Here's the trick, though.
Right.
You wouldn't go into camp with just Derek Carr and Jake Haener and say, "Oh, we're good. We're good." That wouldn't happen. To me, you would still have to have some form of competition there. You would add a quarterback either via the draft. And look, if they draft another quarterback, which is certainly possible, early to late round, early, mid, or late rounds, that's certainly if they draft a quarterback in the second round, that could change this topic altogether. But if they draft another late round quarterback, then he's someone that could potentially compete with and battle it out and likely win that competition. Or what I think could realistically happen, they sign a veteran journeyman to come on in, got some experience, and let those two battle it out. Back in 2000 in either 10 or 11, I'd have to go back and look at the actual year, the Saints did this. They brought in, you remember Patrick Ramsey, the old Tulane quarterback? They brought him in, and they had Chase Daniel, and they let those two battle it out, and in the end, they gave it to Chase Daniel and let Patrick Ramsey walk. So it's just something to keep in mind. They've done that before, but I would be hesitant to just pencil him in automatically as the number 2 right now, but I absolutely 100% believe he can become the number 2 through natural competition, whether that competition be another draft pick quarterback or a veteran journeyman quarterback that's got some experience that could be kind of making that last little rotation that they do toward the end of their respective careers. Add some competition to me, add competition everywhere this training camp, up the energy. Be very competitive, play like you understand the circumstances you're under right now from the start of training camp on. Him being suspended last year for 6 games was certainly interesting. It caught everybody off guard. And I don't look, I guess it was PEDs. I guess is what it was. If you look at him, he doesn't look like a PED guy. I mean, that's not a knock on him. It's just he's not a huge guy.
Right.
So I think it caught everybody off guard. I don't know if that would ever be held against him. And I go back to the Saints source that reached out to me and told me this kid is unbelievable. This kid, I can't believe how much farther along he is than other rookie quarterbacks we've seen. But they added at the end, I just wish he was an inch or two taller, because he is somewhat of a smaller type quarterback. But nonetheless, back to the big picture topic at hand. Can he be the number 2? I absolutely think he can compete and earn the number 2 spot in this quarterback room.
Correct. And there's 2 things on my mind when it comes to Jake Haener. Number 1, a lot of Saints fans still may be unfamiliar with him, but when you hear his name, you may roll your eyes because you think of the quote-unquote ghosts of Garrett Grayson, the ghosts of Ian Book, guys who the Saints have drafted in the middle rounds, and they really, I don't want to say waste of time, but they really didn't accomplish anything meaningful in New Orleans. It was, in a way, a wasted draft pick. Don't be so quick to bring Jake Haener together with those guys, to group them together, because Jake Haener was very impressive in training camp, and we know training camp is, team versus team. You're not bringing in other defenses, but it's the confidence that we saw. And Jake Haener spoke about it. He was very confident. And don't be confused into thinking the same Jake Haener that you did see in the preseason is the same Jake Haener you'll see going forward, because he did get to sit under 2 veteran quarterbacks in Derek Carr and Jameis Winston. And no matter what you think of Carr or Winston from a talent or winning perspective, it's important for young rookie quarterbacks to be around veterans, guys who can show them the ropes and how things work in the NFL when it comes to preparing for a game, when it comes for studying about a defense. And Jake Haener had that in that locker room. The second thing I wanted to bring up, you talked about the veteran quarterbacks that the Saints can bring in to maybe give them a little bit of competition. And I was looking at that too. All of these guys are people who will be free agents. Ryan Tannehill, Jacoby Brissett, Marcus Mariota, Drew Lock, Josh Dobbs, all guys who have been around the block, been there, done that, can come in and really push Jake Haener. And we'll see if Jake Haener can maybe beat one of those guys out. And another guy who I put an asterisk around, Sam Darnold, currently in San Francisco working under Clint Kubiak. He's going to be a free agent.
Yeah.
Kubiak's coming in as OC. Could he potentially bring Darnold with him to compete with Jake Haener for that number 2 spot? Because Darnold's been backing up San Fran. We saw him in Carolina. Started a little bit, backed up Cam Newton for a while. He's kind of been a journeyman ever since he got traded from the Jets. Could that be a guy maybe you settle in at the number 2 spot? So the Saints certainly have options, but I don't want to overlook Jake Haener as one of those options because we did see him look good.
Yeah, and here's the thing, like, you know, you mentioned some of those names. Those guys play a lot of football, and you know, if you're a coach, you naturally would have some comfort in that if you were a snap away from having to play the backup quarterback, which it's on everyone's mind, especially recently in the NFL. Look what the Saints this past year. They had 3 different times where Derek Carr exited a game. And to me, let's just say that situation played itself out and they signed a Ryan Tannehill or whatever the case may be. And it's obvious while Haener is growing, he's not there yet. I still think he makes the team. I still think he's on the roster. I still think he's on the roster as a number 3 quarterback, and they would just give him a little more time to certainly grow in that regard. But, yeah, man, I think all options would be on the table at that point. And you're kind of starting fresh with this new offense because everyone's kind of starting at the same level unless you bring in a guy from Kubiak's, you know, previous stops. So I think all options would be on the table at that point. So I just think because everyone's turning over a new leaf offensively. I mean, everyone's kind of starting from zero. Everyone's kind of starting from scratch now. That's going to be fascinating to watch that all develop as we get, you know, into the OTAs, mini camp, and obviously into training camp as well.
Definitely, and I think a new system might even be better for Jake Haener, especially as a smaller quarterback, something that'll kind of get him out the pocket, get him moving around, get him different throwing angles. That might be better for Haener than maybe Pete Carmichael's system was.
Exactly. Exactly. And if you watch the guy operating that offense right now, which we'll get into in a second, Brock Purdy, small in stature, but you never feel like his size is a detriment in that offense because they're able to move him. He's able to feel stuff. Just the way he's able to, and the way they sort of define the play where it's just clear for where the quarterback has to go with the football. It feels like they're able to offset any size deficiency. So I think Jake Haener's in the mix. I think that's the bottom line we're both getting at. Right. I think he's in the mix. I don't think it's a guarantee. And I think he would have to earn it through a genuine competition, but I wouldn't discount the idea of Jake Haener being the backup quarterback for the Saints next year.
And a guy you just mentioned, Brock Purdy, he's got a pretty big day coming up on Sunday, Sean.
Is that right?
Yeah, we've got Super Bowl, what is this, 53, 60, whatever, wherever we're at. We've got the Super Bowl coming up, Chiefs versus Niners. I got to ask, Sean, big game. Who you picking?
Well, I just can't go against Mahomes. I think this is going to be a great game. I really think this is going to be a great game. I kind of want to see the Chiefs lose, but I'm not picking them to lose, if that can make any sense to you right there. But here is a little bit of an irony alert here is because, you know, you watch the way Mahomes and the Chiefs have played, it's especially offensively, it's been a much sort of efficient, managing situations well. You haven't necessarily seen the, oh my God, take over type plays that you would normally see in the Mahomes magic. You haven't really seen it as much as you would normally would in the postseason, whereas Brock Purdy, kind of the game manager, if you will, has fallen behind, which the worst thing that can ever happen to a quote-unquote game manager is falling behind because now you can't just check it down and get your way out of a jam. He's had to overcome early holes and make some plays to rally his team to come back and win games. I just think this. San Francisco is going to get blown out if they fall behind early like they had the last 2 games in the postseason. Kansas City, to me, they're running the football. They're playing clean. They're playing ahead of the sticks, and they're playing on schedule. That last week against Baltimore was really something. The way they just kind of came out and just methodically won that game. So San Francisco, to me, their shot is it's got to be you can't fall in an early hole because if you fall in an early hole, I think the game is over because they're just not going to be able to come back on Kansas City the way they came back on Green Bay and obviously Detroit. So I'm picking Mahomes and the Chiefs, but I really think this is going to be a good game because I cannot see San Francisco coming out and falling behind by 17 or 20, whatever it is, for a third game in a row.
I agree with you. I've got the Chiefs winning it. By the way, I sorted out those Roman numerals. Super Bowl 58.
Okay.
Super Bowl 58. But I agree. I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I know they're not necessarily the popular pick when it comes to who do you want to win. And, maybe the relationship between Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift has a little to do with that. But I'm going to go with the Chiefs. I can't bet against Patrick Mahomes. No. He's the best quarterback in the league. I'm not going to get into GOAT status, but he's definitely one of the best quarterbacks that we have seen play the game. But I don't know if the reason that they'll win, the number one reason, is going to be Patrick Mahomes. Because when you look at the Niners, you talked about how they fell behind early. The reason they fell behind early is because teams have really been able to run the ball against them this postseason. In the regular season, the Niners are the third best team when it comes to stopping the run. In the postseason, they've given up the second most amount of rushing yards. And all of the teams, and there haven't been many of them, but the teams that have been able to beat San Fran, for the most part, were able to run the ball effectively. And the Chiefs has a guy who every time he steps, he looks like he causing an earthquake somewhere, but it's Isaiah Pacheco. He has been very effective this year, very effective in the postseason. I think in that game, you've got to give the ball to Pacheco, let Clyde Edwards-Helaire mix in, and really run the ball, control the clock, keep the ball, because San Fran's got those playmakers. Christian McCaffrey. You cannot do anything with Christian McCaffrey. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. When you want to go weapon for weapon, the Niners definitely win that battle. So if you're Kansas City, control the clock, run the ball, hit them where it hurts or where it
manage the game.
Right. All right. That's the great irony. Right. You almost have to manage the game. The biggest playmaker in the game might have to manage the game against the guy who's been called a game manager and Brock Purdy. But I think the Chiefs are able to do that. I think it's a little higher scoring than you might think. I'm going to take Chiefs 31-27 to go back-to-back and win another Super Bowl.
See, I think I said on Overtime Tuesday, Juan put me on a spot. I think I said 24-21, but I think it's going to be a field goal game, and we'll see how that sort of works itself out. It's interesting because this happens sometimes where Super Bowl Sunday falls on Bacchus Sunday, and it's always one of those things where you kind of parade all day and you kind of make that business decision: do I stick around for Bacchus Parade? Do I go watch the Super Bowl? We're sports guys. We know what we're gonna do. We're gonna go watch the Super Bowl. This is what we do every single year in, or whenever it certainly falls on this day. With the calendar, can get a little quirky, and it happens to land on this day. Yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes. But I'm sure you'll have plenty of crowds out there for that magnificent parade. All right. Yes. Speaking of parades, I promised you guys an announcement. Okay, if you are at the Crew of Endymion, I am riding in the Crew of Endymion. I am float 21A. I'm on the passenger side, upper deck. I'm going to be the second one from the front. So there's going to be one guy in the front at the upper deck. I am the second guy from the front. 21A, upper deck, passenger side, second guy from the front. So if you see me, if you're out there, yell my name. I'll try to find you. There's going to be a sea of humanity out there. But it's my first time riding in the Crew of Endymion. Crazy circumstances. I got added in last second. So if you're out there, give me a wave, give me a yell, and I will do my best to get some stuff to you. So it should be fun this weekend in New Orleans.
Make sure you're stretching, warm that
arm
up.
I got to get the arm going. My flag football days have been diminished to basically next to nothing, just the flag football game we play with the media every year. So I got to get stretched out, warmed up, and
I'm going to expect accuracy,
packed
precision,
up. I got to get I got to make sure I hydrate.
Yes,
all day
definitely
on Saturday. Hydrate. We'll see. All right. Anything else before we get out of here?
Don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that bell, get that notification on your phone every time we post a podcast, because you wouldn't want to miss that. I mean, come on. I forgot to say that earlier. So yes, thank you for adding that. Like, share, rate, review, subscribe to this YouTube channel, and we'll just keep cranking out this content. And every time it comes in, if you subscribe, you get the bell notification and all that good stuff. All right. Happy Mardi Gras to all of you out there. Have a great weekend, a safe weekend, and we will be back on Monday. For Andre Johnson Jr., I'm Sean Fazende. We'll catch you guys next time on Overtime.